After the liberals had won the War of Reform, Mexico was still divided, but during the subsequent French intervention, while Juarez attempted to build and lead his government from within a carriage, and the French advanced toward the capital, the armed peasants tried to defend their country. Legend has it that in the midst of this maelstrom, in an isolated area relatively close to Guadalajara, one of those Juarista soldiers decided to become a highwayman, together with a band of fellow deserters. His name was Diego Vallejo. Throughout the long years of the intervention, they devoted themselves to robbing coaches and the cargoes of silver that departed from Zacatecas, headed for the center of the country, and they accumulated a fortune which they kept hidden in a cave within the Potrerillos ranch in the highlands of Jalisco, which was also their hiding place. With the triumph of Juarez's forces and the resulting amnesty for all bandits, especially those whose exploits had contributed to the weakening of the enemy, Vallejo found an opportunity to rebuild his life, but was unwilling to share his fortune with his previous accomplices. Diego Vallejo had as his right-hand man a young fellow nicknamed El Güero Rafael, or Blond Rafael, whom he trusted wholeheartedly. He called him aside and told him of his plan to hide all the gold and silver they had obtained, and to bury it in a nearby place where the other outlaws wouldn't be able to find it. Later, both of them would obtain their pardons and they could enjoy their booty without sharing it with anyone. El Güero Rafael agreed, and they arranged to load the treasure on 7 mules while the rest of the gang was away. After loading the mules, they ascended an incline up to an area known as Los Magueylitos, just above the keg, turned right, and entered a grove of trees. In those days, the whole area was completely uninhabited, except for packs of wolves, which is why it was infrequent for anyone to go near there, fearing their attack. They walked around 20 minutes to a cedar grove, where Vallejo chose the ideal place, next to a fence which ran alongside the Camino Real or Royal Road, and made it easier to gain access to the money without anyone from the ranch finding out about it. Both men began digging a hole about 3 meters deep, and once finished, they threw the treasure inside and began to cover it up. While Blond Rafael threw in shovelfuls of dirt, Vallejo crept up behind him and fired his weapon. There would be no witness to the location of the treasure, and, as additional protection, El Güero, now turned into a specter, would look after the burial site. The brigand finished filling up the hole and left with the mules. Now he had to present himself before Don Jorge, his previous commander and also the owner of the ranch, to ask his forgiveness for deserting and to pay his respects. But first, he had to let his wife know where the treasure was buried, so he sent her a brief note which only read, "Some 7 lengths from a cedar tree which stands out for its size, and looking to the west, are the money and the Güero Rafael." When he got back to the cave, he took his belongings and went up to his commander's house to inform him he would travel to Teocaltiche to obtain his pardon. As he was saying his goodbyes, his fellow bandits whistled to him from the other side of the river. He crossed over and got into a discussion with his men, who demanded he tell them what he'd done with their money. When he refused to say anything, one of them ran him through with a spear and killed him instantly. It seems his widow was never able to find the burial, which was lost forever, when the descendants of the commander and ranch owner cut down the grove of trees to create more farmland. It's more than likely that the cedar tree was also chopped down, although the hope was always that it might have received a pardon in deference to its size. Several later expeditions tried to find the treasure of Diego Vallejo, apparently without success, although who would be naive enough to reveal such a find? Or perhaps El Güero Rafael still looks over the treasure with great zeal. If you liked this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, And remember to click the bell so you'll know when there are more forgotten stories. You can also visit our main story in Spanish if you'd like to practice the language. The COVID pandemic isn't a forgotten story yet, so wear a mask, and if you possibly can, stay at home.